So, what happens when you plug a 2,500-year-old philosophy into a cutting-edge large language model? Well, today we're diving headfirst into Dhamma-Tech, this strange, fascinating new world where artificial intelligence is remixing ancient Buddhist wisdom, and it's raising some pretty profound questions about the future of faith itself.
You know, it all starts with something that honestly feels a little bit like a magic spell. Just a simple text prompt. A few words that describe an idea you have in your head.
So, you might type in something like this: a monk meditating peacefully, surrounded by elephants, hyper-realistic, cinematic lighting. A really specific vision, right? A moment of pure tranquility that you want to bring to life.
And just like that, an AI generates this moment of devotion. Now what you're seeing here, it isn't a photograph. Think for a second about what this would have cost just a few years ago. You'd need a film crew, trained animals, travel to a specific location, all that lighting, and now it's created in seconds on a laptop. This isn't just a neat party trick, it's a total revolution in how we create sacred art.
This right here is completely changing the game for how spiritual content gets made. So you have to ask, why are creators, especially in the Buddhist space, jumping on this technology so fast? Well, it turns out the reasons are less about deep philosophy and more about solving some very practical, very expensive problems.
I mean, just think about the headaches this solves. All of a sudden, you don't need a massive budget for actors and shooting on location. But the real game changer? It's copyright. If you pull a beautiful image of the Buddha from a quick web search, you could be facing a lawsuit. But because the legal status of AI-generated art is still this kind of gray area, creators are using it to sidestep those risks completely. It's just faster, it's cheaper, and legally, it's a whole lot simpler.
Okay, so that's a single image, but how do you go from one picture to building an entire content channel? Well, we're now seeing a full Dhamma-Tech blueprint emerge. It's like a digital assembly line for churning out spiritual content.
And the workflow is, frankly, shockingly streamlined. It starts with an AI like ChatGPT writing the script. Then tools like Midjourney or Leonardo.ai generate all the visuals. AI voices provide the narration, and then other AIs animate the whole thing into a video. After a little human touch-up at the end, you've got a finished piece. Just notice how much of this process is almost entirely automated. You can go from a simple idea to a finished product with very little human intervention.
And the stuff that's coming out of this is where things get really wild. We're not just talking about boring explainers here. We're seeing ancient stories totally reimagined for sci-fi. Picture a Buddhist prince using his willpower to survive on a desolate alien planet. You've got AIs explaining really complex modern ideas, AI-generated visuals for guided meditations, and even these attempts to visualize abstract concepts like heaven and hell. It is a completely new creative frontier. But this whole thing isn't just happening on YouTube and social media. This convergence of faith and AI, it's actually crossed over into the physical world. It's taken on a form that brings all these abstract ideas crashing right into our reality.
195 centimeters. That is the height of Kannon, a robotic priest modeled after the Bodhisattva of compassion. It actually lives in the historic Kodaiji Temple in Kyoto, Japan, and it was built for one simple reason: to translate ancient Buddhist teachings for a generation that might never, ever step foot inside a temple otherwise.
And don't mistake this for just some kind of tourist gimmick. Kannon delivers a full 25-minute sermon on core Buddhist teachings, like the Heart Sutra. In fact, the head priest of the temple actually said that for Buddhism to stay relevant, its statues need to start speaking. This robot is their answer to that.
So does it work? The reaction has been, well, it's been fascinatingly mixed. On one hand, you have visitors saying things like the AI's lesson genuinely helped them understand their own problems. But on the other hand, the data tells a very different story. A study found that visitors donated 12% less money after listening to the robot compared to a human priest. So it seems like we're open to getting wisdom from a machine, but our generosity, that still requires a human connection.
The very existence of a robot priest like Kannon, it pushes us past all the practical questions and right into the deep end of philosophy. It forces us to confront these huge questions about consciousness and what a machine can really teach us about being human. And that leads us to what is, I think, the most mind-bending question in this whole conversation. We know an AI is just code. It doesn't have an inner life, no feelings, no self, and yet it can act like a wise teacher. So, if it can do all of that without a self, what does that imply about the self that we feel so strongly inside of us?
To even start to answer that, we have to talk about a core Buddhist concept: anatta, or non-self. This doctrine teaches that the permanent, unchanging I that we feel we are is actually an illusion. In reality, what we call me is just this temporary collection of physical and mental parts, constantly in flux. It's like the ship of Theseus, being replaced piece by piece until nothing of the original really remains.
And this is where it gets really interesting. There's this quote from Murray Shanahan, a scientist at DeepMind, and he argues that AI is basically the ultimate demonstration of anatta. It can perfectly imitate having a personality, a voice, a self, all without actually having one. It's like a mirror, showing us in the clearest possible terms that our own sense of self might be more of a performance and less of a permanent soul than we like to think.
But, of course, with these profound possibilities come some immense dangers. The ethical challenges here are huge. First, accuracy. Can an AI really understand the deep nuance of sacred texts? Second, responsibility. Who's to blame if AI gets used to create religious propaganda? And finally, the human element. If we start getting all our spiritual guidance from an app, what happens to the vital role of real-life teachers and communities?
So, in response to these risks, there's this growing call to build an ethical framework now, before it's too late. The proposal is to build these tools on a solid foundation of Buddhist principles, to require oversight from actual religious experts, not just tech developers, and to demand total transparency. You should always know when you're interacting with an AI. The ultimate goal has to be making sure this technology is only ever used to reduce suffering, not to exploit people's faith.
Which leaves us right here, at the ultimate question. As this Dhamma-Tech keeps evolving, what is it going to become? Is it a revolutionary new tool for enlightenment? One that helps us see ancient truths in a completely new light? Or is it our most sophisticated illusion yet, a ghost in the machine that can mimic wisdom perfectly without possessing a single drop of it? Right now, the answer is still being written.